Alex proposed on a Thursday because he said he couldn't stand waiting one more day for a weekend. We were at the small Italian place where we had our third date, red checkered tablecloths, a waiter who'd been there long enough to remember my order, the same flickering candle in the chipped brass holder. He slid the ring across the table like a secret, and I laughed through tears and said yes so fast the next table clapped. It felt like the start of a movie. Even washing my face later that night felt cinematic. I caught my reflection, this woman with a new ring and mascara smudged under her eyes, and thought, this is what it looks like when your life turns a corner. If this were a movie, the next scene would be a montage. Venues, champagne flutes clinking, my mother crying, Alex's hand steadying me on a staircase. In reality, the next morning brought a text from a number I didn't recognize. Congratulations! Let's plan the perfect day, Linda. His mom. The heart emoji and the excessive capitalization made my stomach flutter with something I didn't have a name for yet. I'd met Linda a handful of times. Brisk hugs that smelled like expensive lotion, thoughtful hostess gifts, a candle labeled sea salt and lavender that made our apartment smell like a boutique. She was warm in a way that felt curated, like a holiday table someone had spent hours styling. I liked her, or at least I liked the version of her that made lemon bars and corrected Alex's posture with one eyebrow. I showed Alex the text over coffee. He grinned and kissed my head. She's excited, he said. She's been manifesting this day since I was born. He said it like a joke, but it lodged in me like a tack. 3 hours later, Linda knocked on our door with a binder. A real one, white, thick, with a clear pocket on the front where she'd slid a page that said "Our Wedding" in looping gold calligraphy. She handed it to me the way you hand someone an heirloom. Inside were tabs: budget, guest list, venue, food, traditions, special moments. Under budget, she'd already penciled numbers. Dress, $2,500, photography, $3,000, flowers, $5,000, and then, in a heavier hand, contribution from groom's family, $20,000. I blinked. Linda, this is so generous, I said, meaning it, because we live in a city where caterers charge like surgeons and money is a magic spell. We were thinking small. Backyard, maybe? She smiled, the corners of her mouth pulling tight. Oh, honey, she said, this is your one day. You don't want it to feel casual. The way she said casual made it sound like a disease. Alex squeezed my knee under the table. Mom, he said gentle, we want whatever makes us happy. Right, babe? Right, I said, and I meant that too. But I also knew what $20,000 meant. It meant the binder on my lap. It meant her tab sections turning into a script. The first real skirmish was the venue. Linda wanted a church. St. Bartholomew's has windows that look like heaven, she said, flipping to a page where she'd printed photos off the internet. I grew up without a church, with a mother who talked to God in the garden and never told me his last name. Alex and I had talked about it already. An outdoor ceremony under the maple tree at my aunt's farmhouse. A simple arch, chairs rented from the party store, the soft idea of something rustic that didn't feel like a theme so much as fresh air. Of course we can do the farm for the photos, Linda said quickly when we told her, but the ceremony, she tapped the church pictures with her nail. The sanctuary is just classic. It's also not really us, I said, voice polite. We already called my aunt. She's excited. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes cooled by a degree. We'll circle back, she said, flipping another tab. Dress. I hadn't even thought about a dress yet, beyond the hazy Pinterest board where everything looked like a cloud someone had cinched at the waist. Linda had thoughts. Mermaid is out, she said. It's tacky now. Ball gown is timeless. Lace, but not too much lace. Sweetheart neckline. But if you're still going to the gym, we can consider a portrait collar. Alex laughed. Mom, what? She said, faux innocent. A well-fitted dress is an act of respect. For the guests, for the photos you'll look at for the rest of your life. I don't want to look like cake, I said lightly, and she waved a hand. We'll see. I told myself this was normal. Brides complain about future mothers-in-law all the time. It's a meme. There are entire subreddits dedicated to monster-in-law stories. And we laugh because it makes our own families feel cuter. And Linda wasn't a monster. She brought soup when I was sick. She texted me recipes. She hugged me and called me sweet girl, which made me feel 16 and adored. But the ground kept shifting under small steps. A guest list I thought would be 80 ballooned to 140 overnight, because you can't invite Aunt Teresa without inviting her siblings. And it would be an insult not to include my book club. They've supported Alex since he was little. Linda said little as if he were a community project and not a man who pays his own car insurance. She started a group chat called Wedding Warriors and added her sisters, her cousins, Alex's godmother, and me. My friends weren't in it. The messages flew. Should we do Dove release? I can get the choir boys from St. Bartholomew's. No buffet. Buffets are for funerals. I tried to be gracious. I made a separate group chat with my mom and my maid of honor, Maggie, titled Sanity. Maggie sent memes of brides running away in sneakers. My mother sent a photo of her floral sundress and asked, "Too cheerful for the rehearsal dinner?" I told her she could wear a tutu and a crown if she wanted, and she texted back a gif of a dancing hippo. It made me feel like someone had tucked a blanket around me while I slept. Linda's contribution came with quiet clauses that weren't written, but were nonetheless legible. "Since we're helping," she said one afternoon, "we should lock in vendors quickly, get the best while we can. I have a photographer in mind. He did the mayor's daughter's wedding. His rate is, well, it's an investment, but you'll thank me." "We were going to use Joe," I said. Joe is a friend from college who shot our engagement photos in a park at sunset and captured my laugh in a way that looked like relief. "She's amazing." Linda's smile turned sympathetic, which felt worse than angry. "Sweetheart, I know she's your friend, but weddings require professionalism." I thought of Joe in her denim jacket, climbing onto a bench to catch the light. I thought of the mayor's photographer whose portfolio looked like a glossy magazine for rich white people named Sloan. "We'll think about it," I said. Linda marked photographer TBD in her binder like a judge. It kept going. "Cake. I wanted lemon with raspberry. Linda said chocolate is more universally appealing." "Music. I suggested an acoustic guitarist for the ceremony. Linda sent me a link to a string quartet and said, 'Real instruments elevate.' Flowers. I liked wildflowers. Linda said peonies or hydrangeas, or people will think it's a picnic." "People?" I asked once, and she blinked like I'd said something in a language she didn't speak. "Guests," she said slowly. "Community, family, the people who will remember this day forever." Sometimes Alex intervened. "Mom, there are choices," he'd say, and she'd pat his arm like he'd recited a line she loved. "Of course," she'd say. "Of course, honey." Then she'd text me privately. "Let's put a pin in it." The pins multiplied until the board looked like it was bleeding. The first time I pushed back hard was about the ceremony itself. "I don't want to be given away," I told her. "My dad can walk me. But when the officiant asks who gives this woman, I want him to say, 'She gives herself.' Or we can skip that line." My dad, who is gentle and cries at commercials, said he would be proud to say exactly that. He liked the idea. He hugged me in the kitchen and said, "You've always given yourself. I'm just honored to walk with you." When I told Linda, her face shuddered. "That is not how we do things," she said. "It would confuse people. Your father will be hurt." "He told me he wants to," I said. "He loves it." She pursed her lips. "Your father is easily swayed by your charm." Alex cleared his throat. "Mom," she sighed. "It's your day," she said, but she said it like a lament. Then came the invitations. I wanted simple recycled paper with a pressed leaf. Linda ordered samples from a stationer in Connecticut that cost as much as a car payment. The samples arrived at our apartment in a box with tissue paper like a present. When I told her they weren't us, she frowned. "You'll regret going cheap. People keep invitations on their fridges for months." I imagined our friends' tiny apartment fridges, held together by magnets and takeout menus, and the photo strips from booths and bars. "Our people don't keep paper," I said. "They keep memories." She didn't answer that. She sent me a screenshot that night of a mock-up. Mr. and Mrs. Michael Anderson, together with Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Carter, request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their children. I stared at the phrase request the honor and their children. We were both 32. We had a dog we co-parented. Our lease had both our names. I typed, "We want the wording to be from us. Alex and I would love for you to join us." She replied, "That's not how it's done." By then, I had started to dread the chime of my phone. It wasn't that every suggestion was wrong. Some were beautiful. Linda had impeccable taste, but it felt like being swept into a river that didn't care whether I could swim. One Sunday, my mother invited us all, me, Alex, and Linda, for brunch to talk through big picture things. She made waffles and bacon and cut strawberries into little hearts because she said she couldn't help herself. My mom is the opposite of Linda. Soft edges, laugh too big, clothes patterned with happy accidents. I thought maybe having them in the same room would balance the scales. It did not. Linda arrived with the binder and set it on the table like it was paying rent. My mom poured mimosas and said, "I think it would be cool to have the kids read a poem during the ceremony." These kids were my cousins, both under 10, who adored Alex and had already made him friendship bracelets. Linda blinked. "Children have a way of interrupting flow," she said. My mom smiled politely and said, "Sometimes a good interruption makes you remember to breathe." Linda didn't write that down. At one point, my mom leaned over and squeezed my hand under the table. Her eyes said, "You okay?" I shrugged, which in daughter language means, "Not really, but I don't want to blow this up." After they left, she hugged me on the porch and whispered, "Sweetheart, say what you need to say. Weddings are a stress test. They don't make people difficult. They reveal who already is." I nodded and said I would. I even believed myself for a few hours. 2 days later at 7:13 a.m., I received an email from the coordinator at the farm venue. Subject line, "Confirming your ceremony update." I hadn't requested any updates. I opened it, my stomach already tight. "Hi, per Linda's call, we've gone ahead and switched your ceremony site from the maple tree to the chapel space. We'll reserve the sanctuary at St. Bartholomew's as a backup in case of rain, as discussed. Also, we've updated the rehearsal time to accommodate the choir practice schedule." I stared at the screen. My pulse thudded in my ears. Alex walked into the kitchen half asleep, hair a mess, smiling at me like he always does in the morning. "Hey," he said, pouring coffee. I turned the laptop toward him without a word. He read the email. His face changed. "Please don't freak out," he said softly. "Don't freak out?" I repeated, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "She changed our venue, Alex, behind our backs, without even asking." He rubbed the back of his neck and sighed. That sigh men do when they know they're standing on a landmine. "I know. I'll talk to her." I snapped the laptop shut. "When exactly? Before or after she replaces my dress with one of her choosing and invites her yoga instructor to officiate?" He gave me this helpless look that made me angrier. "You know how she gets. She probably thought she was helping." "Helping," I said, standing up, "by calling a church I've never agreed to and telling them I'll be there in a white dress to perform a ceremony that I didn't plan?" He reached for my hand. "Babe." "Don't?" My voice cracked on the word. There was a long pause. The refrigerator hummed like background tension. Then he said softly, "She means well." I laughed. It came out bitter. "No, Alex, she means control." He looked like I'd slapped him. "She's my mom." "I know," I said, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. "But she's not my wedding planner." That night he called her. I sat on the couch listening to his side of the conversation. Calm at first, then frustrated, then that practiced middle ground between pleading and trying not to start World War III. "Mom, it's not about rain," he said at one point. "It's about boundaries." He paused, rubbed his forehead. "No, she's not ungrateful. She just wants to make her own choices." Another pause. "Okay, fine. I'll tell her." He hung up and looked at me weary. "She's upset." "Good," I said. He frowned. "She said she only booked the church as a backup. She didn't mean to overstep." "She literally overstepped, Alex." He sat beside me. "Look, I told her to back off. She said she'll let us decide everything from here on out." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I'd seen the binder. I knew Linda wasn't someone who backed off. She rebranded her interference as care. The next morning I got a text from her. I hope you know I was only thinking of you both. Can we meet for lunch? I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. I met her at a little cafe downtown, the kind of place with flowers on every table. She greeted me with air kisses and a latte already waiting for me. I wanted to clear the air, she said sweetly. Sure, I said cautiously. I realize I got carried away, she began. It's just, this day means so much to me. I've dreamed about Alex's wedding since he was a baby. I stirred my coffee, trying to steady my voice. I get that, but it's not your wedding. Her smile didn't waver. Of course not, but family is what makes a wedding special. You'll understand when it's your own child. I swallowed the retort that rose to my tongue. Linda, I appreciate your help, but from now on, any decisions go through Alex and me. Together, she nodded like a queen granting permission. Absolutely, she said. I'm so glad we talked. For a moment, I thought maybe that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, the florist called to confirm Linda's adjustments. I didn't even let her finish before I asked, what adjustments? The switch from wildflowers to peonies and roses, she said cheerfully. Oh, and we're adding crystal vases for the centerpieces. Very elegant choice. I nearly laughed. Please revert to the original order. Wildflowers, mason jars, no crystals. There was an awkward pause. Are you sure? Mrs. Carter said. I'm the bride, Dummer, I said, my voice shaking. Please, make the change. That night, Alex and I had our first real fight about his mother. She's spending her money, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. She just wants things to look nice. So she gets to buy control, I shot back. Is that how this works? He rubbed his temples. It's not control, it's generosity. Generosity doesn't come with strings attached, Alex. And right now, I'm getting strangled by them. He didn't answer. The silence stretched until it broke into exhaustion. The next day, my mom called. You okay, sweetheart? You sound worn thin. I told her everything. About the church, the flowers, the endless texts. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Do you want me to talk to her? No, I said quickly. That'll just make it worse. She sighed. Then you need to decide what kind of wife you're going to be. The kind who keeps the peace, or the kind who builds one. That night, I thought about that word, build. I'd always imagined marriage as something you stepped into, like a finished house. But maybe it was something you had to build, brick by shaky brick, and right now my foundation was cracking. 2 days later, Alex came home from work with a look that made my stomach drop. What happened? I asked. He hesitated. Mom's upset again. She said she feels unappreciated. She's not the bride, Alex. I know, he said, but she said she might pull her contribution. I froze. You mean the money? He nodded, guilt written all over his face. She feels like she's being pushed out of her own son's wedding. I laughed, a hollow, humorless sound. Good. Maybe then she'll stop planning it. He didn't smile. We can't afford the same wedding without her help. So what? We just hand over the reins? Let her run the whole thing? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I grabbed my phone and texted Linda before I could stop myself. Hi, Linda. I think it's best if Alex and I cover our own wedding from here on out. Please don't spend anything further. We're grateful for the offer, but we want this day to reflect us. Her reply came 15 minutes later. Oh, sweetheart, don't be rash. You'll regret cutting corners. Let's talk before you make any big mistakes. I stared at it, fingers trembling. Then I typed back 2 words. No thanks, and hit send. When I told Alex what I'd done, his face went pale. You told her no? Just like that? Yes, I said, just like that. He didn't say anything, but his silence wasn't proud. It was terrified. The next morning, I woke up to 21 missed calls, all from Linda. When I saw the missed calls, my first instinct was that someone had died, that many calls in a row didn't happen unless it was an emergency, or apparently unless your future mother-in-law believed you'd committed a moral crime by saying no. The first voicemail was shaky, half crying, half angry. I just don't understand why you do this without talking to me first, she said. I thought we were family. The second one was clipped and cold. If you're going to make decisions that affect my son, you owe me a conversation. By the fifth, she'd moved on to guilt. I'm not your enemy, sweet girl. I just wanted this to be beautiful for you. I stopped listening after that. My hands were shaking. Alex came out of the bedroom, still half asleep, and saw my face. What happened now? She called 21 times, I said. I think she's on a grief schedule. Denial, anger, bargaining, guilt. He rubbed his eyes. What did you do? Nothing, I said. I told her we'd handle the wedding ourselves. He exhaled, sat down next to me, and dropped his head into his hands. You could have warned me. Warned you that I'd set a boundary? We've been talking about setting a boundary for weeks. He looked up. You know how she gets when she feels shut out. She's not being shut out, Alex. She's being told she doesn't get to be the director of the show. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'll call her. Don't, I said quickly. Not until you've decided which side you're on. That landed like a slap. He didn't respond, just stood up and walked into the other room. The door clicked shut. I could hear the low murmur of his voice a few minutes later, calm, reasonable, the same tone he used in client meetings. It made me irrationally furious. When he came back, his face was tight. She's hurt, he said. Of course she's hurt, I said. People like her always are when they lose control. Don't talk about her like that, he snapped. I froze. He'd never raised his voice to me before. I'm sorry, he said quickly, but the damage was done. The next few days were an emotional Cold War. We still cooked dinner together, still watched shows at night, but there was a new weight in the silence between us. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced for it to be her again. On Friday, a package arrived at our door. No return address, but I didn't need one. Inside were wedding magazines, 3 fabric swatches, and a note written in elegant cursive. I know you said no, but I couldn't resist helping just a little. Think of this as inspiration. Love, Linda. I stared at it for a long time before throwing the whole box in the trash. That night I told Alex, she sent me a box. He sighed. I'll talk to her again. You've said that before. He looked at me helplessly. What do you want me to do? She's my mom. I want you to tell her that I'm your future wife, not her project. His jaw tightened. You're asking me to choose. I looked at him, eyes burning. I'm asking you to stand with me. He didn't say anything. The next morning I packed a bag and drove to my mom's. I didn't tell him how long I'd be gone. I just needed air, space to think without the ghost of his mother hovering over every decision. When I pulled into my mom's driveway, she was already on the porch with coffee and a look that said she'd been expecting me. Come inside, she said softly. I made banana bread. She didn't ask questions right away. We sat at the kitchen table, the smell of warm bread between us, until I finally said, I think I'm marrying a man who's still afraid to disappoint his mother. She reached across the table and took my hand. Most men start that way, she said. The good ones learn. What if he doesn't? She squeezed my hand. Then you'll learn something too. That night Alex called. His voice was soft, uncertain. Are you okay? Yeah, I said. Just needed space. He hesitated. Mom came over. She's upset. I'm sure she is, I said flatly. She said she just wanted to make it special. She didn't mean to. Alex, he stopped. I love you, I said quietly, but I'm not walking down an aisle she built. If you can't see that, maybe we're not ready. He was silent for a long time. Then quietly, come home, please. We'll fix this together. When I got back 2 days later, the apartment looked like someone had staged a peace treaty. Flowers on the counter, my favorite Thai takeout, a little card that said, I choose you. He looked nervous when I walked in. I talked to her, he said. Really talked. She's not happy, but she's backing off. Why do I feel like that sentence ends with a but? He hesitated. But she still wants to host the rehearsal dinner. I laughed, a hollow sound. Of course she does. I told her it's the only thing she gets to plan, he said quickly. Just one night. I studied him. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. And I realized that maybe he wasn't just afraid of his mother. He was afraid of losing both of us. Okay, I said finally. She can have the dinner, but everything else stays ours. He nodded. Deal. For a few weeks it actually worked. The binder stayed closed. The call stopped. We picked our own vendors, designed simple invitations, booked the farmhouse. My mom cried when she saw the space. "It feels like you," she said, and I almost believed the worst was behind us. Then 3 weeks before the wedding, Linda called me. "Sweetheart," she said in that sugary tone I'd come to dread. "Quick question. What are you planning to wear to the rehearsal dinner?" "I don't know yet," I said cautiously. "Well," she said, "it might be good if your dress doesn't clash with the theme." I froze. "Theme?" "Oh, didn't Alex tell you?" she chirped. "We're doing an all-white dinner. It'll look divine in photos." "All white," I repeated, as in everyone wears white. "Yes, it'll be so elegant." I stared at the wall. "Linda, you do realize that's what brides traditionally wear?" There was a pause. Then lightly, "Oh, I hadn't even thought of that." Of course she had. When I hung up, my hands were shaking again. That night, I told Alex. He sighed. "I'll talk to her." But before he could, she sent out the invitations. Gold lettering on white cardstock, rehearsal dinner, an evening in white. I saw the photos of the invitations on Instagram before I even received mine, and that was when I knew Linda hadn't just wanted to plan the wedding. She wanted to own it. When I first saw the Instagram post, it didn't even register what I was looking at. A friend of Alex's cousin had posted it with the caption, "Can't wait for this fancy dinner, the year wedding season, era all-white party." At first, I just blinked at it. Then my stomach dropped. The photo showed an elegant ivory envelope, gold embossed text, and those 3 mocking words, "An evening in white." I sat on the couch for a full minute, staring, the phone warm in my hand. My pulse was in my throat. Then I walked to the kitchen, set the phone on the counter, and said out loud, "She did it again." When Alex came home from work, I didn't even greet him. I just handed him my phone. "Scroll," I said. He frowned, swiping. His expression fell. "Oh, God. Did you know?" He looked up, panicked. "No, I swear I didn't." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But my voice came out quiet, sharp. "So your mother organized an entire themed event, printed and mailed invitations, and posted them online without you noticing?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "She must have done it fast." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course she did. Manipulators always do." "Please don't call her that," he said, his voice suddenly defensive. "What am I supposed to call her, Alex? A fairy godmother?" He rubbed his temples. Okay. Let's just take a breath. I'll fix it." I crossed my arms. "How exactly?" He didn't answer. He just pulled out his phone and dialed. I could hear her voice even from across the room, bright, syrupy, already 1 octave too high. "Mom," he said, "what's this about an all-white rehearsal dinner?" A pause, then, "Oh, darling, don't sound so serious. It's going to be stunning. Everyone's already so excited." I could hear her laughing. "Mom," he said again, firmer this time, "you can't do that. It's not appropriate." "Oh, don't be silly," she said, and I could picture her waving her hand dismissively, perfectly manicured nails catching the light. "You and your bride will look radiant, and she can wear a little color, maybe blush, something flattering." I saw Alex's face go pale. "She's the bride, Mom. She wears white." "Oh, sweetheart, it's just the rehearsal," she said. "It's not like the real wedding. Let me have this one thing." That phrase, "let me have this one thing." I'd heard her use it before. It was her way of turning manipulation into martyrdom. Alex hung up after a few minutes, shoulders tense. "She says it's too late to change." "Too late?" I said. "It hasn't even happened yet." "She sent everything out," he said softly, "and the venue's already booked." "So what do we do?" I asked, heart hammering. He didn't look at me when he said, "We just go and ignore it." "Alex, please," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "I'm exhausted. Can we not fight about this again?" That last word, again, stung more than I expected. I slept on the couch that night. The next morning my mom called. "I saw the post," she said. "Do you want me to burn something down?" I laughed, then started crying. I don't even know what to do anymore. Every time I push back, I'm the problem. She sighed. "You can't win a game she invented, sweetheart. You have to stop playing." "What does that even mean?" It means do what you want, wear what you want, walk into her little dinner in whatever color makes you happy. Her words stuck with me. The night of the rehearsal dinner came faster than I expected. Linda had booked a fancy restaurant by the lake, the kind of place with chandeliers and a string quartet playing soft jazz versions of pop songs. Everyone was there, Alex's extended family, co-workers, cousins, even people I didn't recognize. And everyone, as promised, was dressed in white. It looked like a cult meeting. When I walked in wearing deep emerald green, the room went silent for a heartbeat. Heads turned. I caught Linda's expression, smiling, but her eyes were tight, a flash of shock before she smoothed it over. "Oh," she said, walking up to hug me. "You're so bold." "Thang," I said. "I didn't get the memo." Her smile froze. "Of course you did." "I must have missed it," I said lightly. "I was busy planning my wedding." For the first time since I'd met her, Linda didn't have a response. The dinner itself was a blur of polite conversation and undercurrents of tension. Alex held my hand under the table the whole time, but he didn't say much. I could feel him vibrating with discomfort, torn between us. At one point, his aunt leaned across the table and whispered, "You look stunning, dear. It's nice to see someone stand up to her." That whisper was all it took for me to survive the rest of the evening. When the dinner finally ended, Linda stood to give a little speech. She tapped her glass delicately and said, "I just want to say how proud I am of my son and his beautiful fiancé. Family means everything to me, and I'm so grateful to be part of this celebration." Then she turned to me, her voice turning sugary again. "I know weddings can be stressful, but I hope you remember how much love surrounds you." I smiled tightly. "I'll remember everything, Linda." The next morning, she posted photos from the dinner on Facebook. Every shot was perfect. Golden lighting, laughter, white outfits glowing. And in all of them, I was cropped out. When my mom saw the post, she called and said, "Well, that's war." It wasn't, not yet. But something inside me shifted that day. I'd spent months trying to be diplomatic, polite, understanding, but I was done playing by her rules. The wedding was 1 week away, and if Linda thought it was hers to control, she was about to find out otherwise. By the time the week of the wedding arrived, my body felt like it was running on caffeine and adrenaline alone. Every conversation with Linda played in my head like static. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a tiny shock of dread. Alex was trying, really trying, but his attempts at peacekeeping were paper thin. He'd say things like, "Let's just get through the week," or "It's only one day, babe." But that was exactly the point. It wasn't only one day. It was the first day of the rest of our life together. And if we couldn't draw a line now, I knew I'd spend our marriage standing behind one. 3 days before the ceremony, the hair and makeup artist I'd booked called me. "Hey," she said hesitantly, "I just wanted to confirm the final look. I got your mom's notes." "My mom?" I said. There was a pause. "Sorry, I assume Linda was your mom." My stomach dropped. "What did she tell you?" The artist hesitated again. "Just that you wanted a classic updo instead of the soft waves we discussed, and that we'd skip the eyeliner. She said your eyes are already, dramatic enough." I nearly laughed. Dramatic enough. That was Linda's voice, all right. I took a breath, steadying my tone. "Thank you for checking. Please ignore any instructions that don't come directly from me." "Got it," she said. "You wouldn't believe how often that happens." "Oh, I would," I said. After I hung up, I sat on the couch in silence, the anger simmering low and steady. There was no misunderstanding anymore. Linda wasn't just meddling, she was undermining me, piece by piece, as if the smaller I felt, the easier I'd be to control. That night, Alex came home to find me surrounded by checklists, vendor emails, and a bottle of wine. "She changed my hair and makeup order," I said flatly. He froze. "What?" I told him everything. The color drained from his face. "I'll call her." "No," I said, "don't." "Why not?" "Because this isn't your fight anymore, Alex. It's mine." He hesitated, but something in my tone must have told him I meant it. He nodded slowly. "Okay, just please don't burn the world down before Saturday." I smiled tightly. "No promises." The next day, I met Linda for what she thought was a final coordination meeting. We sat in the fancy cafe she loved. White marble tables, overpriced tea, soft piano music. She arrived in a cream blazer and pearls, carrying her wedding binder like a badge of honor. "Sweetheart," she said, "you look tired." "I'm fine," I said. "We need to talk." Her smile flickered. "Of course. About what?" "The wedding," I said evenly. "And about boundaries." "Oh, darling, don't be so tense," she said, flipping open the binder. "It's all coming together beautifully. I spoke to the florist again this morning. I told the florist not to speak to you anymore," I interrupted. That made her look up. Her eyes went sharp. "Excuse me?" "I told them you're not part of the planning process," I said calmly. "I appreciate your help, but from this point forward, I'm handling everything myself." She blinked. "You can't possibly mean that. You'll be overwhelmed." "I've been overwhelmed for months, Linda," I said. "By you." Her jaw tightened. "I'm only trying to make sure things go smoothly." "Then let me make my own mistakes," I said. "It's my wedding." For a long moment, she didn't speak. The air between us felt like static, charged and brittle. Then she leaned back in her chair, smiled, a tight, cold smile, and said, "You'll regret this." I met her gaze. "Maybe, but at least it'll be my regret." She closed the binder, stood up, and said quietly, "You're making a big mistake marrying into this family if you can't respect it." I didn't flinch. "I'm marrying Alex, not the Carter Committee." She left without another word. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, hands shaking slightly, but heart strangely calm. It was the first time I'd ever said no to her without apologizing for it. That night, Alex listened quietly as I told him what happened. When I finished, he didn't speak right away. Then he took my hand. "I should have done that months ago," he said. "You tried," I said softly, "but she needed to hear it from me." He kissed my forehead. "Then I guess we're really doing this on our terms." The morning of the wedding arrived like the quiet after a storm. The farmhouse was glowing in the early light, the maple tree standing tall and gold against the sky. My mom was there, humming as she steamed my dress. Maggie, my maid of honor, handed me a mimosa and said, "You look terrifyingly calm." "I'm done being terrified," I said. And I was. The ceremony started at 3. Guests began arriving, a sea of familiar faces, some hesitant, some beaming. When Linda stepped out of her car, I actually held my breath. She was dressed immaculately, of course, in an off-white gown that skirted the line between elegant and bridal. But when our eyes met, she didn't smile. She just nodded once and walked toward the seating area. I took a deep breath and told myself, it doesn't matter. She doesn't matter. Today is ours. When the music started and my dad offered me his arm, he whispered, "You look like yourself." That almost made me cry. The ceremony itself was perfect. The sunlight filtering through the trees, the soft rustle of leaves, Alex waiting under the arch with that nervous smile I fell in love with. When the officiant said, "Who gives this woman?" my dad looked right at me and said, "She gives herself." The crowd chuckled softly. I saw my mom tear up, and for a moment I forgot about everything else. It was just us, the life we were promising, the love we'd chosen. Afterward, during the reception, Linda approached us. I braced myself, but her expression was unreadable. "Congratulations," she said. Her voice was even, polite. "It was lovely." "Thank you," I said cautiously. She looked at me for a long time, then said, "You surprised me today." I wasn't sure if it was a compliment or an accusation. Then she smiled, small, real, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit proud. "You're stronger than I thought." "I had to be," I said quietly. She nodded. "He needs that." Then she turned and walked away to join Alex's aunts at their table. I stood there in my dress, surrounded by laughter and light, and realized something I hadn't before. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need anyone's. All I needed was the man waiting on the dance floor, holding out his hand, grinning like I'd just saved his life. I walked toward him. The first song played softly under the string lights. Our song, the one we danced to in our kitchen when we first moved in together. Alex's hands were steady on my waist, and for the first time in months, I felt completely weightless. People were clapping, cameras flashing, my mom crying happy tears, And somewhere in the crowd, I caught a glimpse of Linda watching. Her face was hard to read, part wistful, part calculating. But for once, she didn't look like she was in control. When the song ended, the DJ shifted into something upbeat and everyone flooded the dance floor. My dad spun me once. My mom joined in. Maggie dragged Alex's groomsmen out to make fools of themselves. And for a brief, beautiful stretch of time, there was only laughter. No binder, no interference. Just joy. Dinner was served family style, long wooden tables filled with the smells of roasted vegetables and lemon chicken. It was everything I'd wanted. Simple, warm, real. People complimented the setting, the food, the flowers. "Who did your arrangements? They're stunning." I wanted to say I did, but instead I just smiled and said thank you. When it came time for toast, Alex stood up first. He talked about me the way I think everyone hopes to be talked about one day, kindly, vulnerably, with little stories that made people laugh through their tears. "She's taught me how to be brave," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "especially when I didn't know I needed to be." He looked at me then, and I knew he wasn't just talking about love. He was talking about his mother, about all the invisible lines that had finally been drawn. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. "I think a lot of people think weddings are about perfection," I said, glancing around the room, "but I think they're about truth, about building something real, even when it's messy." Linda's eyes flickered toward me. I held her gaze and smiled. "So thank you to everyone who helped us build something true." There was polite applause, laughter, clinking glasses. But under the noise, something subtle shifted. Linda lowered her eyes like she'd heard more than I'd said out loud. Later in the evening, after the cake cutting and the champagne toasts, she found me near the barn where the caterers were packing up, the noise of the party muffled behind us. "May I?" she said, gesturing toward the bench beside me. I nodded. She sat down, smoothing her dress. "You know," she began, "I've been trying to think of the right word for you." I waited. "Formidable," she said finally. It caught me off guard. "That's not what I expected." She smiled faintly. "I'm used to being the one who decides how things go. You didn't let me. That's rare." I exhaled slowly. "You made it hard not to." She gave a small laugh. "You sound like me when I was your age." "I hope that's a compliment." "It is," she said. Then her expression softened. "Just a little. I don't say this often, but I'm proud of you." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was the closest thing she could offer. "Thank you," I said quietly. She nodded. "Take care of my son." "I intend to," I said. She patted my hand once, then stood up, her heels clicking against the wood. "Good," she said, "because I think he finally married someone who won't let him hide." And then she walked back toward the glow of the party, leaving me sitting there, half stunned, half relieved. When I returned to the dance floor, Alex found me immediately. "What did she say?" he asked, eyes wide. "Nothing bad," I said, smiling. "Maybe something good even." He let out a breath of relief and pulled me close. "Can we officially call this the best day ever now?" "Yes," I said, "because it's ours." We danced until our feet ached. When the night ended, we waved goodbye to everyone under a shower of sparklers. My mom hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. "You did it," she whispered. "You didn't just get married. You stood your ground." In the car, driving away with Alex's hand on mine, I looked out the window at the fading glow of lights behind us. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" I asked. He smiled softly. "I think she already has, in her own weird way." I nodded. Maybe forgiveness wasn't something you got in a single conversation. Maybe it was a long, quiet truce, made up of small gestures and grudging respect. When we got to the hotel, I kicked off my shoes and looked at myself in the mirror, the dress a little wrinkled, hair undone, makeup smudged, but me, entirely me. I thought about that first binder, the 20 tabs, the budget lines, the illusion of control, how small it all seemed compared to this moment. "I think your mom finally realized I'm not going anywhere," I said. Alex grinned. "That makes two of us." I laughed, leaning into him. "Let's just hope she doesn't show up on the honeymoon." He winced. "Don't even joke." But she didn't. In fact, she didn't call for a full week. A new record. When she finally did, it was just to say, I hope you're both happy, and for the first time I believe she meant it. Our honeymoon was in a little coastal town a few hours away. Quiet beaches, pastel cottages, and coffee shops that smelled like butter and salt. After the months of chaos, it felt like stepping into another life. The air itself seemed gentler, like the universe was whispering, you can breathe now. We barely left the cottage for the first few days. I think we both needed the silence more than anything. No phones, no group chats, no schedules. Just us. I'd wake up to the sound of waves and Alex's arm heavy around my waist, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to brace for the next crisis. One morning over breakfast, Alex said, you know what's crazy? I actually miss her. I looked up from my toast. Linda? He smiled sheepishly. Yeah, not the version from wedding planning, the version from before, the mom who used to send me links to stupid memes and text me at midnight because she'd seen a raccoon in the backyard. I nodded slowly. You can miss her and still have boundaries, you know. I know, he said, reaching for my hand. I think she just didn't know how to let me go. Letting go's never been her strong suit, I said softly. He squeezed my fingers. You handled her better than anyone could have. Better than you did, you mean? I teased. He laughed, the sound easy and real. Definitely better than me. We spent the rest of that day walking along the shore, collecting little seashells like kids. At one point, Alex stopped and said, you know what I realized? What? You married me despite my mother. Because of your mother, I corrected. She taught me exactly what kind of man you are. He tilted his head. Meaning? Meaning you're patient and kind, and you're learning to be brave, even when it's uncomfortable. He smiled, that slow, familiar smile that made everything feel right again. You make me want to be better. Good, I said. You'll need that skill when we have kids and I turn into her. His eyes went wide. Don't even joke. I laughed until I cried. The honeymoon passed too quickly, as honeymoons always do. When we got back home, reality returned in gentle ways. Bills waiting on the counter, work emails, the dog we'd left with my mom leaping into our arms like we'd been gone a year. Linda called that weekend. I saw her name on my phone and hesitated. Alex raised an eyebrow. You going to answer? I guess I have to eventually. I picked up. Sweetheart, she said. I didn't want to bother you on your honeymoon, but I just had to hear your voice. How was it? Wonderful, I said honestly. Peaceful. I'm glad, she said, and for once she sounded sincere. I hope you both got to relax. You looked so beautiful at the wedding. Everyone's still talking about it. That's nice to hear. There was a small pause. Then softly, I know I went too far. The words hit me harder than I expected. Linda, no, let me say this, she interrupted. I pushed too much because I thought I was helping. I see now that I made things harder for you. For both of you. I sat down slowly. Thank you for saying that. I don't want to start our family with bad blood, she said. You're part of us now, and I want that to be something good. For the first time since I'd met her, I believed she was telling the truth. Then let's start over, I said. I'd like that. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Alex walked in, drying his hands on a towel. Was that her? Yeah. How was it? I smiled faintly. Surprisingly human. He grinned. That's my mom. From then on, things were, if not perfect, manageable. She still made suggestions sometimes. You should host Thanksgiving this year. Maybe you'd like a beige nursery, it's timeless. But they were softer, less intrusive, and for once she actually listened when I said no. A few months later, we visited her and Alex's dad for dinner. The house looked the same, perfectly decorated, candles burning, a faint smell of lemon polish. But the energy was different, lighter. She hugged me at the door, really hugged me, not the quick social one she used to give. At dinner, she handed me a small box wrapped in gold paper. Just a little something, she said. Inside was a silver charm bracelet. One of the charms was a tiny maple leaf. For your tree, she said. I'll never forget how beautiful it looked that day. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Thank you. She smiled. It felt like you finally made the family your own. I think that's what I was afraid of losing. You didn't lose it, I said quietly. You just had to share it. After dinner, when Alex went to help his dad in the garage, Linda and I sat on the porch. The air was warm and smelled like rain. I know I still have my moments, she said. Don't we all, I said, smiling. She looked at me for a long time, her expression soft. You're good for him. You know that? I nodded. He's good for me too. She laughed. You might actually keep him in line. I grinned. That's the plan. That night, driving home, Alex said, I think she really meant it this time. I think she did too. We fell into a comfortable silence. The road stretched out ahead, dark and open, and I realized that for the first time since getting engaged, I wasn't dreading what came next. Marriage wasn't about perfection. It was about learning, adjusting, standing up for yourself, and still choosing love through all of it. I reached for Alex's hand. Hey, I said, you know what I learned? What's that? That boundaries don't ruin families. They protect them. He squeezed my hand. Remind me of that when we have a teenage daughter. I laughed, leaning my head against the window. Deal. A year passed faster than I thought it would. Sometimes I'd catch myself scrolling through our wedding photos and still feel the knot of stress in my stomach soften into something like pride. The maple tree, the sunlight, Alex's shaky grin. It all looked like a story that ended well. Life settled into something steady. We found our rhythm. Work, dinners, weekends spent repainting the guest room or arguing over which grocery store had better produce. Real marriage, the kind that isn't about centerpieces or photo ops, but about choosing each other in the ordinary moments. Linda called often, but it was different now. Not the suffocating kind of communication, more like genuine check-ins. How's work, she'd ask. Or, I found a recipe for that lemon cake you like. Sometimes she'd even ask me for advice, which still surprised me. She had learned slowly that our lives didn't need her supervision, and I had learned something too, that forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It means you stop letting it control the narrative. One afternoon near our first anniversary, Alex and I drove out to see his parents. Linda had planned a small family dinner. Nothing fancy, just roast chicken, potatoes, and a cake she swore was store-bought, I promise. When we arrived, she hugged me tight. Not the polished, performative hug I remembered from the early days. This one was warm, real. You look happy, she said. I am, I said. Over dinner, we talked about everything except the wedding. Alex's dad told bad jokes. Linda showed me pictures from her new garden, and at one point she laughed so hard at something Alex said that she actually snorted. It felt normal. The kind of normal I never thought we'd have. After dessert, Linda disappeared into the other room and came back holding something. It was the binder. The binder. The one that had once ruled my nightmares. Oh God, I said, half joking. Don't tell me you've started a sequel. She smiled and set it on the table. No, I just thought you might want it. I stared at her. Why would I want that? Because, she said softly, it's part of the story. The messy part. The one you survived. I hesitated, then opened it. The pages were worn, corners bent, ink faded. The tabs, budget, venue, traditions, guest list, were still there, though some were empty now. On the first page, where it once said, Our Wedding, in her careful calligraphy, she had added something new at the bottom in smaller handwriting. I'm glad it became yours. I swallowed hard. Thank you, I said quietly. She nodded. You taught me something, you know, that letting go doesn't mean losing. It means trusting. I smiled. You're full of wisdom lately. I've been humbled, she said with a little laugh. It's good for me. When we left that night, the binder sat on my lap during the drive home. I ran my fingers over the cover, thinking about how much had changed, not just with her, but with us. Alex glanced over. You okay? Yeah, I said. It's just weird. A year ago, this thing felt like a symbol of everything that was wrong, and now it's just a reminder that we made it. He reached over and squeezed my hand. We did. We drove in silence for a while, the hum of the road filling the quiet. Then he said, I think she respects you now. Maybe, I said. Or maybe she just realized I wasn't going anywhere. He smiled. That too. When we got home, I tucked the binder into a box with our wedding album and a few keepsakes. A pressed maple leaf from the ceremony, the cork from the champagne bottle, a photo of my dad walking me down the aisle. The binder didn't feel like an enemy anymore. It felt like a chapter, one that had hurt but had also taught me what it meant to stand tall when it mattered. That night, I curled up on the couch next to Alex. The room was dim, the dog snoring at our feet. "Do you ever think about how close we came to losing it all?" I asked. He turned his head toward me. "Yeah, all the time. What do you think would have happened if I just let her have her way?" He thought for a moment, then said, "I think you'd have ended up married, but miserable, and she'd still be running our lives." I nodded. "So you're saying I saved us?" He grinned. "You absolutely saved us." I laughed softly. "Then next time she starts planning something, remember that." He mock saluted. "Yes, ma'am." A few days later, I got a small card in the mail. The handwriting was Linda's. It said, "Thank you for making my son happy, and thank you for teaching me that love doesn't mean control. It means letting people grow." I put it in the binder. Months later, when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't hesitate before calling her. "Linda," I said, voice trembling, "you're going to be a grandmother." The pause on the other end was followed by a sharp inhale, then genuine, unguarded joy. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "I'm so proud of you." I smiled through tears. "Just promise me one thing." "Anything. When it's time for the baby shower, I plan it." There was a laugh, soft, real, deal. And just like that, the past finally loosened its grip. Because some stories don't end with a perfect wedding. They end with growth, the kind that takes time, forgiveness, and a few hard lessons about love and boundaries. And that's exactly what we built, together.